Welcome to the Chief Endurance Officer Podcast. I'm your host, Greg McDonough. Each week, we hear real-time stories from athletes and CEOs on how to maximize performance through an endurance mindset. Let's get started. So I'm super excited to have this guest on our show today. He is a lifelong entrepreneur with a passion for triathlon. In 2016, he launched a fast-paced, innovative race format for the global audience, which has grown into a world-class pro league, a thriving mass participation series, and a pioneering esport event. Please welcome the co-founder and CEO of Supertri, Michael DeHoost. Michael, welcome to the show.
Well, excited to be here.
Awesome. Well, we were just chatting about endurance, and Michael, as you know, I love getting into this subject. So please tell me how your endurance mindset has impacted your life unexpectedly.
I mean, I guess I'm originally from Belgium, so we grew up watching cycling and endurance and big one-day classics or the Tour de France is something that I kind of aspire to and watched from a very young age. But for me, triathlon came in 1996 when Luc van Lierde won Ironman Hawaii, and that was really kind of a boost for many people in Belgium. A lot of my friends also got inspired, and we started doing our first triathlons back in the day, and that was my first touch point with triathlon. As I said, I've been doing some cycling and running before that, and actually it stuck with me ever since the mid 90s. And from there I ventured on to going into business. I worked for Volkswagen for 10 years. I was sent early on to China in early 2000s, so had a corporate career, but found my way back to. I continued to train triathlon and found my way back into triathlon, back into endurance.
That's excellent. So, as you think about kind of the careers that you've gone through, so for your life so far, and the events that you've competed in, the businesses you've been involved in, right? There's sort of this endurance mindset that you have to have in order to get to those finish lines, to climb the corporate ladder. I really love to dig deeper, Michael, into like how, as you develop that mindset to accomplish what you've accomplished, anything like unexpected sort of come up that you didn't think was going to be in front of you at some point in time, or you expected to go to point A and you ended up at point B?
I think it's. I mean, for me, the endurance mindset is kind of teach me that expect the unexpected almost, or deal with the unexpected, or be ready for the unexpected. I mean, my whole life has been kind of a series of events that you deal with, and you use the endurance mindset to create the most out of it. I mean, even from young age, I traveled a lot. I spent time overseas, studied in different locations around the way, from South Africa to Italy. Went on and worked in Germany. They sent me to China, and a lot of these kind of go to new places, adventurous places. Going to China in early 2000s and being sent there by Volkswagen Group to kind of bring their two Chinese joint ventures together. You need to have a very flexible mindset, and things are happening, and you need to be able to deal with it in the moment. And I always kind of, I mean, even back then I did some speaking engagements for universities, and I actually always drew back to the endurance mindset, the ability to kind of deal with the situation as they evolve, make the best of it, don't panic. And it's the same thing that we see in triathlon racing, right? I mean, you're going to race an Ironman this weekend. You know that something is going to go wrong, right? You don't know yet what, but you know that something is going to go wrong, or not as expected, but you deal with it. And I think that's what we learn in training. That's what we learn in racing. You learn to deal with those situations. They come up, and you continue. There's a lot of crossover for me between the endurance mindset and the business, and entrepreneurial mindset in business.
100%. Yeah, and you just made me fearful about what's going to happen on Sunday. But there's always something. And I've got an answer to this question, but I'd like to hear your answer first. So how do you prepare yourself for the unexpected?
Well, I think it's for me, the process is very much to kind of take a deep breath and let it sink in, and kind of really own the unexpected rather than reacting. Basically, absorb it first, deal with the situation, consider it, slow down a little bit, and don't go reactive. That's really my process to deal with unexpected situations, because I think, yeah, if you react too quickly, you're burning matches, or you make wrong decisions. For me, like if I compare it back to triathlon racing, if I come out of transition, I say my first transition, I will walk the transition and take on my nutrition. I just kind of reset and I get ready for the phase. If it's a full distance Ironman, get ready for the marathon, or get ready for the half marathon, or even I raced an Olympic distance this weekend. Get ready for the 10K. Walk that first aid station, reset, get in tune with yourself, and go for it. So that reset for me is key.
Any stories come to mind related to the business side where you kind of found yourself in an unexpected situation and you needed to use that same process to get you through it?
Well, there's so many, but obviously there's one that I like. I think for a lot of people in business, and especially in the events business, like COVID threw us all a big curveball, right? So suddenly, and especially for us, I had just moved the business from Singapore to London. We had really big ambitions coming up, right? Hired a whole new team in London. We were still ramping up to do a number of acquisitions and growing our event portfolio. And then COVID hit, and yeah, we had no clue. I mean, I remember talking to my colleagues. Oh yes, we'll probably stay home for a few weeks and we'll be back in the office in about 4 or something. So yeah, that's what's going to be, right? So, and that obviously everything changed, right? And yeah, investors started saying, look, what are we doing? What is your plan? And yeah, that for me, we kind of took our time, considered it, did not panic, start to be creative, and think about all the opportunities that it actually presents. Not just kind of, okay, this is a problem, we need to deal with a problem, but actually flip it upside down, right? And say, okay, this is actually an opportunity, because there will be less other sports, right? There will actually be less competition for us. We just have to kind of solve this little problem, how we do it, like socially distanced, right? And I think, yeah, that's where we remained creative, we remained focused, and we came together as a team. We took our time, but in hindsight, we made decisions like this, right? If you look then back at it, we made very quick decisions, and we were actually, yeah, quick to react. So yeah, I think that's a great example, but there's many more of those.
Certainly. And I don't, on this show, I've tended to lean away from the COVID years, because a lot of us experience them in different ways and the story kind of gets repetitive. But in your case, with an event business, right, that was, a complete shut off, right? And I would love to understand, and you touched on it briefly, like you and your team, how did you sort of handle that sort of day to day, like just, the process of sort of staying positive and getting to the next level and being creative and not sort of looking internally and being like, you know what, we're through, right? How do you, in a team perspective, sort of encourage each other to stay positive and creative? I'd love to know more about what kind of tactics or processes that you use.
Well, I think it all starts with sparking creative ideas, right? And then starting to break them down. But yeah, you have to kind of start with creative solutions, and not dismiss any of the opportunities for being too crazy or too outlandish, right? And just kind of take your time to bring it down to what is feasible as a business. And I think, yeah, for me, it all starts with that vision. So something happens, create an opportunity, and then even don't be afraid to be outlandish in the opportunity you create, but create the opportunity first, and then start breaking down the opportunity, and probably scale it back a little bit in terms of, yeah, craziness, right, to make it more realistic. But I think, yeah, you have to start from the creation, or from something that inspires, rather than from all the problems that you have, right? Once you have that kind of inspirational points that you can work with, then you can kind of dial it down and dive it back to reality. And I think that is important. Always like bringing it back to racing, right? Create what is the opportunity? What can I still achieve, right? And then okay, let's now deal with the facts then. But yeah, if you I think in life, whether in racing or in business, if once you lose the motivation, once you lose that goal, once you lose the creativity, to me, you're at the beginning of the end.
Yeah, I like what you said of what can I still achieve, right? Whatever the situation you're in, what can I still achieve, right? You're at the back half of the marathon and a long distance triathlon and your feet are blistering. Okay, what can I still achieve, right? Like, what can I get a PR in my mile? Can I hit the aid station properly? So I like the way you said that. Michael, any was there was there a crazy idea that came across the table during that time that you now look back and say, "I'm so thankful that we didn't touch that because it would have just blown up in our face."
Well, I mean, that's a difficult one. I think I embrace all the crazy ideas. We had a few interesting ideas like okay, putting triathlons, putting swim bike run in containers and shipping containers to athletes. One of the ideas was if we can't bring the athletes to the event, let's bring the event to the athletes, right? And it would have been logistically a bit of a nightmare, but there's still an aspect of me that liked the creativity of that idea. So yeah, I think I've always been in everything we do and everything we are building. I've always kind of looked, okay, how can we create something complete, right? So I'm not afraid of anything creative and no regrets.
That's awesome. Yeah, I can just see the shipment coming in, right? And there's an endless pool. There's a bike trainer and then a treadmill, and it's all connected already for you to sort of go online and join your community, like connected to Strava. I love it. Michael, let's talk about Supertri. Give this audience some background of. I mentioned earlier you started in 2016. Walk us a little bit through the journey, and then let's really get into the details of what you guys are working on now.
Yeah, well, so for Supertri, look, we are co-founded by three very passionate triathletes. Myself and my other two co-founders. One, Chris McCormack, is obviously a very achieved world champion and triathlete himself, and then the third co-founder is an entrepreneur who's been very successful in business, but found triathlon later in life. And for him, I mean, he's still qualifying for Kona. He's still fully committed. And we came together and we recognized, okay, there's a according to studies, there's 150 million people who say that they are interested in triathlon, but there is actually the product has not matured. I love this. I love what triathlon has to offer, but there's been no new products that are in tune with modern audiences, right? And so we took that and we said, look, the world is shifting, the attention spans are shortening, the younger generations, they're engaging through social media much more, through TikTok, YouTube Shorts, etc. Everything gets shorter and faster. If we want to build a triathlon product for the future, that's what we have to do, right? And then the other component of that was we need to focus on what our own experiences. We need to inspire people, right? So we got creative with the formats and we said, look, how can we create a version of the sport that is like, it feels like you're in a city stadium, right? And our events take place on a one mile loop, so very, very short. If you come as a spectator, there's always action packed. We do swim bike run, 3 times back to back, which means each discipline doesn't take more than 5 minutes, right? So it's very fast, very, very dynamic. We have the best of the best racing, right? So, which is fantastic. Out of the 18 medalists of Paris, 11 came and through racing Supertri, and so that was our starting point. And yeah, we grew very big on social media. We have the largest following of all triathlon rights holders on YouTube. They got great broadcasting, etc. And so that for us is the core proposition. We built a brand on being dynamic, young, fast, and really something that is engaging for spectators, whether you're at home following it through social media or whether you come to one of our venues. You see some of the pictures in the background here. So that was the core proposition. And then afterwards we pivoted and say, look, let's now move from being a rights holder to become a community. And that's where we started now adding mass participation to it, right? And I think there's a great opportunity to kind of coexist in the ecosystem of triathlon, where we focus on building a brand of short course triathlon, so super sprint, and Olympic distance, and create a brand around that for high profile events. So we have events like Chicago. We have an event now in Austin. We did an event last weekend. We had an event in Toronto. We have an event in LA. They're city events. They're big events, and we deliver a high quality experience. So similar, like you sign up for an Ironman, you know what's going to happen. You know this is going to be a quality experience. That's what we deliver for short course. And yeah, we've seen the numbers, we've done the studies, and we see that there is a lot of interesting, especially of the younger generations, the 20 to 35-year-olds, to get into the sport, and they're looking for these kind of community shorter experiences that are very engaging, quality, but also enriching, right? So and that's where we are now. So we have that ecosystem where the professionals inspire, the professionals build the brand, they create the reach, and they inspire the participation, and then the participation is obviously building the community, right? And then there's a lot of value in that community and engaging with that community.
One of the hurdles, and I think you might be solving this, but one of the hurdles for what we see in the triathlon, right, is the swim, that open water swim. It's something that many of us aren't comfortable with. And a lot of people will stay away from the sport because, in fact, I was talking to somebody yesterday about it. In your format, is that a pool swim? Is it like, give me a little bit more detail of how, or the audience a little bit more detail on how specifically that works.
I mean, for the very accessible format, I mean, now we've been talking about the outdoor format. As I touched on earlier in our conversation, we have our Supertri E that started from COVID pivot. That is an indoor format where we swim in a pool, where we ride on a stationary bike, and we run on a treadmill. So that is very, very accessible. Yeah, not only is the pool super safe, but also, yeah, in terms of bike riding, there's no chance of crashing because you're riding on a stationary bike. So that is completely risk-free. If you look at our outdoor triathlons, yeah, we recognize that the swim is the scary part. So what we are doing is we're offering free first-timer programs. So we engage the local triathlon club. So we support the local triathlons and local communities to get people into the sport and make them feel comfortable with swimming, with cycling. I mean, in Chicago, we have a divvy bike wave, right, where people don't have a bike. They can use the Chicago divvy bikes to kind of do the bike, right? They don't have to. So we make it very, very accessible. We also heavily promote relay teams, right? So there's a big movement there to get people into the sport, and where we put a lot of emphasis and support for people who want to come and try. And we see success in that. I mean, we in our events, we have an average of about 38% of people who do their first triathlon. So a very high number.
I would imagine from a logistical and event planning perspective, like dealing with the city for a much smaller sort of street shutdown has got to be easier than, a 112-mile bike ride.
Definitely. I mean, I think we've seen a trend over the last decade where the long distance events are migrating out of the city, and they become much more destination events, because I think generally cities are they don't like the disruption, right? Where we cause less disruption. What we still see is okay, and we're focusing on venues with legacy and triathlon, where there's an existing good relationship with the cities for good road closures, right? Because it is key to deliver safety at scale, right? And ultimately for us, yeah, we are targeting to have big events. Our event in Chicago has 8,000 people. Our event in Toronto this weekend had 3,000 people. We see strong growth. Toronto grew 20% year on year. Chicago is growing 13% year on year. So we see strong growth. So these courses is tricky, and that requires a lot of collaboration and good relationship building with local cities, because even if they're shorter, yeah, it is still disruptive to a city. But we're solving that. So
an audience member's curious to find out more, like what social media platform or website should they go to learn more about Supertri?
They should go to supertri.com or follow and on supertri.com you'll see the Buy Supertri, which is basically all our mass participation events, right? Those we brand under Buy Supertri because we still want to hero the city. So it's Chicago Triathlon by Supertri, Toronto Triathlon by Supertri, because we want to hero the city and being the triathlon in that city. But we put the Supertri quality stamp there so that they know, okay, I'm in for this experience. We are offering our free first-timer program. We're offering different experiences such as the finish line fest, etc., to make sure that the people know that what they're expecting and having the 38% new people having a great experience and coming back and staying in the sport, which is ultimately what we want, right? So I'm very passionate about growing the sport and getting more people in the sport of triathlon.
I love it. And we'll include those links in our show notes. Michael, what's the next 5 years, 10 years look like when you're doing your strategic planning for Supertri with your business partners? You're just got to going after crazy ideas again. What does the next 5 to 10 years look like?
Well, for us, the next 5 years, we're actually now raising money to acquire and bring more mass participation events under this umbrella. I think it is important for us we have 8 events now. I want to grow that to 40, 50 events across North America and Europe, right? And getting a good penetration in those markets, establish our brand in those markets, and then giving people the opportunity to come and race with Supertri every other month if they want to, right? I also think that helps build out the entire triathlon ecosystem, collaborating with Ironman, collaborating with the grassroots events. We're raising money to predominantly do that, acquire more events, bring them all under one umbrella. We are focused geographically on North America and Europe, because I think it is important to kind of really go deep and in a community rather than having one event in an area. I think it's a great time. There's a great opportunity in the US now with the LA Olympics coming up. We have a lot of our of the American Olympic hopefuls with Project Podium and USAT collaborations that we have building towards that. So we're starting to build that narrative, and I think that's an opportunity for us to make short course triathlon more popular, sexy, attractive again, right? And actually grow the entirety of the sport. That's very much the focus for us is to build out that network of mass participation events, geographically targeted, regionally targeted, so we can really engage with the community, grow that community, have multiple touch points with the community. Then obviously continue to grow our pro event series on top of that to continue to inspire. That's where we sit for the moment, and I think we are well set up to do that. We're well on the way with our fundraising, and we're looking at closing that in the next few months.
That's awesome. The light bulb that was coming on for me when you were describing it and talking about the LA Olympics was, I wonder in the future if like the Olympics will change its format to a Supertri format.
Well, I don't think it should change it. I think there's an opportunity to add it. If you look at triathlon in the Olympics, there's only 3 medals for the moment, right? I think the sport can benefit from adding a 4th and a 5th medal, right? So to put a Supertri format male, Supertri format female, add some more medals. I think that is great opportunity, right? Ultimately the sport always, triathlon as a sport has always done great in the Olympics. We've always delivered very exciting racing and done very well in viewerships, right? I was actually in Paris when the triathlon was on. It was fantastic how the crowds, right? So I think there's a great opportunity to expand the footprint of our sport in the Olympics, and indeed the shorter formats or maybe even the longer formats can add to that, right? I think with what we are doing, we see a lot of interest of the younger generations, so opportunities there.
So change the subject on you slightly. So what else do you do for fun?
Well, I have 3 young kids and they all swim. They're not, and they obviously I get them looking at bikes and running a little bit. So, but yeah, I spend time in the pool with my kids swimming. I do still also train and race myself quite a lot. I love the endurance events. It keeps me going. So yeah, it's all about this endurance mindset for fun or professionally. It's only one life.
That's exactly right. It's funny. I've been doing this now for the endurance long distance racing and I'm a back of the packer. I finished with the glow sticks on, but my kids think it's normal, right? And in fact, we were down at the Marine Corps Marathon a few years back, and I was holding one of my daughters, and the folks were running by, and it was like, I don't know, mile 16 or 17 on the course, and my daughter turned to me and goes, "So when did they swim and bike?" And so it's like it's become so routine. I'm curious, like, what are your kids' perspective on triathlon, on swimming, on endurance, on like the craziness that we're putting ourselves through?
Well, they love it, and for them, I mean, I'm taking them to events, etc. So they're also kind of growing up with the athletes. They swim, bike, run, right? That's ultimately what they perceive as a kind of a complete sport, right? And yeah, like even in Toronto, I had one of my kids there. They interact with the athletes. They ask questions. They think for them they are the heroes, right? In our household, they're bigger names than football players, right? So it's very biased. But I think I mean, that's also the nice thing about our sport. I think it's still very, very accessible, and because it's not only my kids, I see that with a lot of the kids and a lot of the community hanging around at the event we had in Toronto. We have Cassandra Beaugrand there, Olympic gold medalist. Alexis, Olympic gold medalist. They interact. They were standing at the finish line. They were giving medals to age groupers who are finishing. They're taking pictures with people everywhere, right? It's that close knit community that is very attractive, right? And there's little other sports that can offer that, where you have a professional sport, right, for us, that does great on television, does great on media, but also there's the participation and the interaction, and the pro athletes are still accessible to anybody, back in the packer, first finisher. It's one close knit community.
Absolutely. One of my favorite moments was at
Oh yeah.
Challenge Roth in 2016. And I knew Chrissy Wellington was doing a relay, and I assumed that she was going to be on the bike. And so when I got on the bike, I kept looking for her because it's a 2-loop course. So eventually she's going to pass me. And she never did. And then I start the run, and I think there's like a 4-loop run. And I just hear like the crowd getting louder and louder. And here she comes with that big smile, like running past me. I'm like, this just made my day. And she dropped me so fast. But to your point, that's something really special about our sport. It's that accessibility to those pros. And I could just imagine them as an age grouper coming across the finish line and seeing a gold medalist with your finisher's medal to put it over your neck. And that's super special.
But and I think what is interesting, right? For me, this is also a business opportunity, the way I see it, right? Because if you look at now the sports business in general, uh, over the last few decades, it's been built up as a media business. Most sports backed by media rights, right? But obviously now with streaming and basically the decentralization of platforms, that secured revenue stream of media rights for many sports outside of the big ones, right, is falling away, right? And more sports have to now rely on community to kind of create an economic model that is sustainable. But for us, right, it's already endemic to our sport, right? So I think actually there's an opportunity here for triathlon to actually level up because it's a step ahead of what for many other sports will become an economic challenge for their business model. Because smaller sports where let's say a decade ago, ESPN or NBC would be looking at spending money on smaller sports to kind of add to its portfolio of content. For the moment, that's not how it works anymore. There's too much fragmentation, and there's also too much entertainment around it now. So I think our community is important, and I think it's very important to nurture that community. But it's also what sets us apart, and actually will future-proof our sport as a sport and as a business.
That's really, really well said. So, Michael, I've been thinking about your transition from corporate life to being an entrepreneur. And I'd really appreciate sort of hearing that story of how that changed. I think you said it was Volkswagen, traveling the world, right? You're signing the back of the paycheck, then you become a co-founder and CEO. Now you're signing the front of the check. Uh, Give us that story. Like, how did all that develop?
Oh, that's that is an endurance event by itself. So I mean, look, I was at Volkswagen. It was a very exciting time. I mean, as I said, I was Volkswagen Investment Groups sent to China early 2000s, and with the idea of bringing two joint ventures uh, closer together, and then uh, building towards 2008 when was the Olympics in creates local manufacturing capabilities for cars, so they would not be subject to import tax, right? If start producing locally in China more. Very interesting. That project came to an end in 2010, and Volkswagen, as any big corporate, said, "Well, now you can go back to Germany. You've done your time." And I was like, "Well, hold on. I have this dream where I want to qualify for Kona. Why don't you offer me a sabbatical, and I'll just I wanted to study some Chinese and train to qualify for Kona. The Chinese study was a little bit less, but the qualifying for Kona worked out well. And one of the first events I did was Challenge Wanaka, and at Challenge Wanaka I met Felix Walsurfer, founder of Challenge Roth. And I said, well, there's a bit of an opportunity to grow the sport in Asia. I know Asia quite well. I speak a bit of the language. Why don't I help you develop this? And I started an event called Challenge Taiwan. I was also involved in an event in the Challenge Philippines, and we had another event, a Challenge Phuket, right? And so I started that event. And actually, at Challenge Philippines, ran into Sheikh Nasser from Bahrain, and he also passionate triathlete. He wanted to do something, so we started collaborate. Me and Chris McCormack started collaborating with him, and it developed the Bahrain endurance, the professional triathlon team with him. So through passion, one thing led to another, and we continued to evolve and meet new people, found new challenges, and continue to develop. And actually, yeah, that's one of those journeys of endurance. So and ultimately through that same journey, met my other co-founder at Supertri, and yeah, the conversation we had is, okay, how can we really innovate the sport? And that's what I was really passionate about. I'm still involved with all the other projects, but yeah, Supertri is my focus.
That's such a great lesson, right? Through passion, one thing leads to the other. And I have found across my career that it feels many times like a random walk, but when you stop and you look back, it's a straight line, right? I'm exactly here, sitting right here today because of something that happened 6 months ago that I felt was random, or a year ago that I felt was random.
But I mean, I think one important lesson there is never be afraid to pick up the phone, because I had no experience with organizing triathlon events. I was I was based out of Taiwan, right? And yeah, ran into Felix Walsurfer. Said, "Why don't I organize an event for you?" Right? Going completely on a limb, right? That event is now Challenge Taiwan is one of the biggest events in the world. Still exists, right? Still doing great. And I was then thinking, okay, now if I have this event here, why don't I bring one of the biggest names in the world in the sport at the time, Chris McCormack? I need to bring him to my event to make it big, and just write him an email, right? Just kind of, hey, Chris, you don't know me, but why don't you come and race my event in Taiwan? And as, I don't know, luck or coincidence or just perseverance, he answered, and that's how like I think there's always that's why I'm going back to, there's always an opportunity. Never be afraid of something. Think big, right? And sometimes it happens, sometimes it doesn't happen. If it doesn't happen, don't be afraid of like the setback, right? I think there's always these traditional kind of graphics where you see the journey of an entrepreneur, right? Where it's up and down, up and down. We remember the great things, but there's a million things that went south. But ultimately, you remember the great things, and it's the great things that move us forward ultimately, right?
Absolutely. And again, it relates so well to endurance racing and training, right? There's all those dark mornings or those long rides that you bonk because your nutrition was wrong, or who knows, you name it. You get hit by the car. But we try to minimize those memories, and we remember the strong finish or the, powering past somebody to get a PR. Michael, an audience member wants to get in touch with you. What's the best way to get in touch with you?
I'm available on my email address, michael@supertri.com. So that's fairly straightforward. And yeah, I'm always open for great ideas. As I said, I mean, I got to where I am now because people answered my emails, and unexpected things happen. So yeah, I embrace that journey.
That's a great way to close out the show. Michael, it's been awesome having you on the show. I'm super excited to learn more and participate in Supertri. It's a new idea for me as well. And as a traditionalist in this sport, I'm happy to see that there are other options. Audience members, if you got some value out of today, please subscribe. Please follow Michael on all of the social media platforms. Check out supertri.com. Michael, it's been great having you on the show.
Thank you. It's been it's great to talk to a passionate endurance athlete and who has so much depth also in the sport. So thank you for having me.
Thank you for tuning in to the Chief Endurance Officer podcast. To hear more inspiring stories and strategies around the endurance mindset, be sure to subscribe below or visit us at chiefenduranceofficer.com. Until next time, keep pushing those limits.